we'll open Vashista, and here he begins, abandon your latent tendencies. Even as a bird wishing to fly into the sky breaks out of its shell. Born of ignorance, these tendencies are hard to destroy, and they give birth to endless sorrow. It is this ignorant, self-limiting tendency of the mind that views the infinite as the finite. However, even as the sun dispels mist, inquiry into the nature of the self dispels this ignorant, self-limiting tendency. In fact, the very desire to undertake this inquiry is able to bring about a change. Austerities and such other practices are of no use in this. When the mind is purified of its past by the arising of wisdom, it abandons its previous tendencies. Let's look at this part first. Abandon your latent tendencies, even as a bird wishing to fly into the sky breaks out of its shell. So the tendencies are like a prison. The tendency is to believe I am a separate entity. The tendency to identify with thoughts, beliefs, emotions, with believing that I am an object. And every thought about objects, we can say they are objective thoughts, except they are like objects. So when I identify with an objective thought, in that moment it is like an object. We will treat it just so one can understand that it is like an object, because that actually validates that there are objects. Therefore, to break this tendency, I have to question if when I refer myself to I, am I actually referring to awareness or to a limited entity? Therefore, when one even communicates, they can start to pay attention. I'm hungry. Who am I referring to? When I say I, who is aware of the hunger?
Awareness is aware of the hunger.
So when I ask who is aware, it can bring you to see that there is not a separate entity. There is just a thought reporting, yet awareness is the one who is aware of it. Therefore, the thought is actually speaking on behalf of awareness. Awareness, aware of the sensation of hunger. The mind reports it, because awareness is silently aware.
So awareness identified itself with the mind, or the mind identified itself with awareness. They become superimposed.
Yeah, it's a mutual superimposition. The thing is that awareness is so intimate with the thought because it's inside the thought. And the thought is intimate with awareness because the thought is inside awareness. Just like the space is inside the cloud and the cloud is inside the space. Yet awareness remains free even though it's inside a thought that is made from name and form. It remains nameless and formless. This is why it can permeate it. So, because awareness has no shape, it can take any shape and remains shapeless. Because awareness has no name, it can take any name and remains nameless simultaneously. This is why when one inquires and the thoughts subside, you remain as awareness free, with no superimposition of a name upon it or a form upon it. In that instant, awareness is aware of itself by itself, because it's pure, it's not tainted by a thought. Abandon your latent tendency, even as a bird wishing to fly into the sky breaks out of its shell. Here he's pointing that the whole work internally is to withdraw the attention from the tendencies. Tendencies are habits. Vasanas are the obstacles. So the tendency to identify as a separate self, the tendency to believe the thoughts to be real, to the tendency to think that I am a separate entity, a limited being, a person, the tendency to react to objects, the tendency to react, and when I say objects, I mean objective thoughts. Reacting to objective thoughts, because we never react to an object, we react to our beliefs about the objects. We react to the ideas we have about the objects, which are either desires or aversion of it, which is pleasure and pain. Okay? So the tendency to believe that we are emotional, when in fact emotion arises and I am aware of that emotion without really being emotional. So the more I would realize that, that's when awareness is breaking free from appearing to be the emotion itself.
And therefore, it unplugs the lamp being the mind itself.
Mm-hmm.
It unplugs it.
Yeah. These tendencies, born of ignorance, these tendencies are hard to destroy, and they give birth to endless sorrow. It is this ignorant, self-limiting tendency of the mind that views the infinite as finite. Means, when I refer to I, always notice that although it is maybe directed to an object, it's who is aware is I. Awareness is a sense of I prior to the thought I. Or awareness is the sense of I am prior to the thought I or am.
So these words are to weaken the grasp or the mind itself from its dominant role.
Yes. This is why when you ask, am I aware? I and aware are synonymous. They are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah? Except not in the language, not in the thought, in the presence of yourself.
So the language was a gift to bring us back to ourselves. Actually, not only to bring ourselves back to ourselves, to evolve.
Yeah, he's going to talk about it. It's basically to return. In a moment he will read it. However, even as sun dispels mist, inquiry into the nature of the self dispels the ignorant self-limiting tendency. we come back, we started about the whole notion of inquiry, right? And the inquiry is to find out who am I? Am I aware? It's a form of a question like, who am I? Who is aware? It's asking, who am I? Okay? Who is aware?
The key to that is actually the two letters, am. Am. Am I aware?
Because it returns to the I am somebody, and then it's returning, am I aware? Returning, just for the analogy we can see. Except we don't want to keep it intellectually. We want the inquiry to live one with the experience, with the recognition. And the experience can change. This is something I have to point. Sometimes it's just clear. Sometimes it's more vibrating and more of a presence. Sometimes it's more experiential. Sometimes it's more of a knowing. Sometimes it's almost like empty and vast, yet there is not a particular experience except you know you are, or you are aware of being aware.
It's a really interesting statement. You are aware of yourself. You are aware of yourself. It's such a lovely statement.
And it's an experiential or recognition or realization in that instant, yeah? Or it's a direct knowing. I'm using words just so one would start to be established in the recognition of being aware.
So are and am are actually interchangeable.